Hello, everyone. Welcome back with another episode of Prolific Read Through. And today we are doing another read through for Feather Sharp as Knives, Chapter 12. Now, if you guys didn't know, I'll be putting up a little box something here on the clip video so you can see the previous on the playlist to our series as we do the read through of Feather Sharp as Knives done by one of my clients, Christina Atkins. And we are loving, there's been a lot of great incidences of tremendous writing, and we're just reading all the good examples. Now, right at this moment, Imelda, the main character, if you guys aren't caught up, go check it out. But she just got betrothed in the last chapter. And betrothal, if you guys don't know, is essentially like the marriage before marriage. It's like you're promised to marriage, but there's no funny business. But it's basically like a promise and telling everybody in society, like, hey, by the way, these two are gonna get hitched, but we're just working out the finer details before the proper marriage. So that got snuck up on her, and so now she can't be seen with Anselmo. Nothing can happen there. And Ulysses, who's actually a really cool guy, has shown up, and apparently he's pretty taken with the young Imelda. So let's go from there and see what is going on. I have no idea what's going on in this chapter, but I'm pumped to read it and see what's going on. So let's get started. Feather Sharp as Knives, Chapter 12. Venezia marched up to Lazaro's room. His door was closed, and suggestive sounds leaked out from underneath. In the middle of the afternoon, the man had no shame. Any time spent with another woman was less time with Venezia, and he needn't be so contemptible about it. So Lazaro's her cheating husband, but real talk, she doesn't love him, and she wants to kill his ass. So I don't know, because he doesn't sound like he's a really good guy, and apparently he'd forced her to do some things she wasn't really cool with. So I have mixed feelings about him. But yeah, slamming another woman in public, what a dog! What a dog! Venezia put her hand on the doorknob as Kari whispered, "Please." Oh, what? Oh my god, this is terrible. This is terrible. Anything I said about Lazaro and Venezia, I take back. Lazaro's a bad dude. But what? Wow, okay. Venezia put her hand on the doorknob as Kari whispered, "Please." It wasn't in a sensual way. I can't read this. Venezia's breast hitched. The men had neither shame nor compassion. Ugh, my God, I can't read. Okay, just finish it. Okay, so this is already what we're going to talk about. Is how do you write about this without making your audience throw up? She threw open the door and marched in. Kari squeaked as she scrambled to cover herself. Such pale skin, almost translucent. Bruises ringed her wrists and dotted her arms. Ew. Venezia had come in at the right time. Lazaro didn't move except to pull his hands behind his head. Yes, some more May? Venezia found a pair of pants on the floor and tossed them at him. The election is in a month. I heard. Already? And you didn't tell me? I only found out this morning while you were meeting with the Admirals on Gara. I didn't realize you'd arrived home. I've been busy. She jerked her head in Kari's direction. Get her out of here. Lazaro sighed and glanced at Kari, who cowered behind the blanket. Go on. She scrambled out of bed while trying desperately to keep the blanket wrapped around her body, then searched for her dress. Venezia pointed behind the chair. Kari gathered her clothes and made for the door. This is the scene of an extremely bad marriage or a very good one. I think we know what it is, but yeah. I almost would like to rewrite this in a healthy context. I don't think there is one, but it would be worth a shot. That blanket is in merino wool, Venezia said, imported from the other side of Mauriciano. You will not drag it down the servants' staircase. Kari froze. Oh my God, really, Venezia? What? She's so petty. Kari froze, then attempted to dress while still holding the blanket up. Venezia advanced. Did you hear my husband? Out! Dude, Venezia's so petty. Oh my gosh, what a petty woman. What a petty woman. Oh my gosh, what a petty woman. This is how you write petty, guys. This is a good example of how to write a petty character. The girl went still again as Venezia came closer. Finally, she dropped the blanket and ran out, naked as a fish and mumbling apologies. That poor girl. Venezia closed the door with a satisfied smile. She couldn't stop Lazaro from buying slaves or doing what he wanted with them, but she could intervene at times, as long as he didn't suspect. That's so messed. Why do you taunt them? Lazaro still lay in bed, pants crumpled on his lap where they had landed. Why do you insist on bringing them into my home? I have to find some way to fill my needs. He gave her a pointed look. It's better than the brothel. Yeah, true. True. He knew that what kind of diseases ran rampant on Soto, but she wouldn't give him the satisfaction of agreeing with him. She snatched his shirt off the chair and twisted it as she paced. They scheduled the election early because Primo knows I'm going to run against him. There's no way this was some chance decision by the council. Enrico Lando must be in the middle of it all. Moving the election is a bold move, Lazaro said, infuriatingly naked. I won't let him throw me off balance. So I feel like infuriatingly naked. She explained and described the girl, her pale, translucent skin, and we got sort of like a visual of Kari. We're not getting a visual of Lazaro. Now, I don't know if that's because she's not looking at him, like she's too disgusted, or she's not describing it. Either way, I feel like some description of her feelings, like infuriatingly naked, you're telling me how that you're telling me. So give me something like what makes her infuriating. Like, does she see his nipples, or does she see the hair on his chest and it reminds her of like a disgusting wet rug, or something like that? That's just sort of like gets me into a visceral emotion of uh, Venezia, because especially because she's described a lot of other things, and I don't know. I feel like with Lazaro, there'd be more of attachment than infuriatingly naked. But I like the direction that's going. Just more description. I won't let them throw me off balance. If he thought it would, he was underestimating her. It gets worse. He knows I'm going to sponsor Janice. I don't know how he found out, and I'll figure it out later. How did you find out about the election, Amour May? She stopped pacing and glared at him. My eyes and ears. Who are? Oh no, my dear. Oh no, dear husband. You won't trick me. Lazaro might be her greatest political ally, as depressing as that was, but even he couldn't know who they were. Beniamino, who had delivered this news, was proving to be the most valuable of all her sources. It had been a gamble to approach Primo's secretary about spying, but it had paid off. Once she was Dose, she would immediately give Beniamino what she'd promised, what his family had been desiring for years: elevation to the nobility. Primo had as many eyes and ears as anyone, if not more. As well he should, as the Dose, but she ensured no one had followed her when she visited Janice. Yeah, that was an intense scene, by the by. Primo had, but she'd ensured no one had followed her when she'd visited Janice. She'd worn a cloaked hood to hide her face from the inn's patrons. How in Rhea's holy name had he learned two of her closest secrets? Because he's her husband. Just kidding, that doesn't mean anything. How in Rhea's holy name had he learned two of her closest secrets? How is your alliance with Fia? Lazaro asked. Strong. She voted with me on the lottery. She rolled her eyes. You were right about working with her. Of course I was, which is why you need to keep listening to me. Then get out of the damn bed. The Eliani are on their way, and I somehow have to get the council members to talk politics during Carnival. Eliani? Heir apparent Nicephorus Heraclius and his sister Callista. She rubbed her temple. We need to plan our strategy for the dinner tomorrow night. Now get dressed. By the way, those names, apparent Nicephorus Heraclius and sister Callista, those are bomb names. Okay, way to drop it down. Those are some sick names. Lazaro pulled himself to the edge of the bed and grunted as he put his pants on. Grunting. Put my pants on, woman. Tell me what to do. Venezia shoved his shirt over and sat at the desk. She bobbed her foot as he finished dressing. The hair on his back and chest had long ago turned white, but it had been 2 years since she'd seen it. Wow. Say no more. That was really good. Guys, so this is a good example of giving a lot of context with just a simple sentence, but I hadn't been seen in 2 years since she's seen it. That says a lot. Wow. His stomach puffed out, but the skin hung off his once muscular arms. He was taking so long to die. He'd seemed ancient when they got married. She'd been naive, thinking he would live long enough to help her become Doce and die promptly after. 13 years later, Lazaro was still alive, and she still didn't have the sash and crown. Lady needs to be patient. It's not that she'd expected to do the heart stitch with him. She'd never anticipated such a rare kind of love, but she'd hoped for some measure of happiness. Not the 13 years of discontentment and worse that defined their relationship. She was no stranger to disappointment, but this failed marriage hurt the most. Perhaps this was the only disappointment she'd had an active part in. Listen, Venezia, if I was your father, I would tell you when you get married for political purposes, it's a business arrangement and it ain't about love. So calling it a failed marriage, maybe it is not. Maybe your priorities are skewed. Real talk. Anyway, back to the script. Her hand drifted to her stomach before she realized it. She quickly shifted her posture and kneaded her temple. Shifted to her. She quickly shifted. Her hand drifted to her stomach before she realized. This is a very intriguing sentence, right? Because that makes me think that maybe there was a miscarriage or something in the past. And that's really good subtle writing, if that's what it is, right? That's really good writing. See, guys, that's some primo, not primo, this guy, but that's some really high level stuff. That's really good. Like, yeah, that's a really good one because that's really good. Her hand drifted to her stomach before she realized it. That's really good. I like that. She quickly shifted her posture and kneaded her temple. I should have just written Janice. Lazaro stood and adjusted his pants. Primo still would have heard about it. He pulled the other chair over, sat and took her free hand in his. You should wait until the next election, Amome. You're not ready, not for an election so soon. You say that every time. She ripped free of his grasp and stood to pace once more. You will help me, Lazaro, or shall I sell your new plaything? Oh, it's so messed up. He scowled. What will you finally? What? Oh, what? Comma. Will you finally? I feel like that should not be a comma. That should just be like just a period or like an exclamation point question mark and then new sentence. Will you finally resume your wifely duties? She'd never fulfilled them. He'd forced them every time for 8 years. That's disgusting. That also says a lot about where she's at. And yeah, they just do not sound like a very good match at all. And that sounds like a horrible situation. But not since she'd tired of that and learned to fight back. She pressed her hand against the knife strapped to her thigh, which once again is really, really, really scary. That's really terrifying. Never again. I feel like I want some history on that knife. Did she actually use it on him? And is that why he doesn't try anything? You could haul yourself down to Sordo to satisfy your needs for all I care. He stood and blocked her path. Even with his stooped back, he had a few inches on her. As he loomed, her heart became 19 years old again, timid and trembling. You agreed to this marriage, he growled. Agreed to be my wife and everything it entailed. Yeah, these guys don't love each other. She couldn't let him see her fear. Confidence was key, even when she didn't feel it. That's how she won battles. That's how she'd win this battle. She stood her ground, and you promised to help me win the sash and crown. He glowered, his dark eyes sharp. I wish I'd known what a gnat you'd turn out to be. I would have found a young bride with a more suitable temperament. Yeah, dude. You should have listened. You should have had some Andrew Tate, but you didn't. So now you're stuck. Disgusting man. How had she ever agreed to marry him? If only she'd seen him for the lionfish he was. Mm. The very marrow of her bones screamed to run. Great sentence. But she smiled and stroked his cheek, even as her soul recoiled. Yes, my dear, but you would have been bored to tears with a pretty dumb thing. How many months did you keep the last one around? How long until you tire of Kari? The past 13 years have been anything but dull. His glare continued a moment later, then he shook his head. How right you are. He even chuckled as he offered his arm. Fine, let's plot your rise to power. You can't do it without me after all. He was right. So utterly disgustingly right. She knew military strategy, but he'd centered his rifle around political maneuvering. She swallowed a sigh as she accepted his arm and allowed him to escort her down to the office. Okay, guys. That that was a really good chapter. So I think when you can walk away from a chapter, so this is a really good example of this is just a transition scene, right? Because you're getting an information exchange and you're really just spending some time with Venezia. Well, first off, this chapter is extremely fun to read because you're seeing their dynamic and however toxic, it's extremely entertaining. And learning different things about Venezia, like 2 years and not seeing the hair on his body, that's insane. That's really insane. And especially like when you see her reaction to it, and you just see the impact and the relevance of their very contractual relationship. And especially at the end here, Christina did a really fantastic job kind of displaying what the dialogue goes through in your mind. Because when you're doing something you don't want to do, there's sort of like this logical conclusion that you're making in your mind to rationalize what you're doing. There's a lot of rationale there. This isn't very visceral, emotional stuff because everything in her, like was said earlier, there's a really good sentence here where she talks about wanting to pull away, right? Says the bone in her marrow wanted to run. What was it? Right? Every bone in her bone, the very marrow of her bones screamed to run. Like that's a fantastic sentence and a really good way of displaying like these guys are not hot for each other and there's a lot of hatred here. And then when he cracks character and tells her what he thinks when she threatens Kari, you realize, okay, these guys have lots of enmity for each other and they're just tied together in this political thing. And that definitely informs Venezia's character. Holding the knife, it also informs Lazaro's character. So you realize there's a sense of like, you realize Venezia is sort of like this power, had been powerless at this one point. But there's parts in here where you can tell Venezia wants people to feel sorry for her, but I don't, because you can also tell like this dude's a toxic man, but she's just as toxic and like as messed up of a woman, if not worse. You know what I mean? Because she knew what she was getting into, and he knows what getting into there. So they're both in a loveless marriage. He's a man, so he's finding some other boots to knock with, and she's just being lonely and plotting and hurting and being petty, right? So they're made for each other. Anyway, this is a fun sentence, a fun little part to read. I'm super excited to see how it will develop, guys. Keep staying with the story. We're loving the developments. There's a lot of good things here. I think especially seeing the effect of just dipping in and bringing people back to their fundamental relationships. Because in terms of plot, this really was just more of a recap. Oh, by the way, this guy found out the election happening. All this was going on. And what's interesting is Venezia doesn't even bother mentioning Imelda or the marriage because you can tell that's not even really on her mind, which says a lot about Venezia as well, right? Because the big plot point was that Imelda got betrothed and she doesn't even mention it. So that's a big thing. And my laptop, my camera just wigged out. So anyway, that's as good a time as ever to take out. So guys, let me see if I can get my camera going back on because that was whack. Anyway, we'll take care of that. And guys, anyway, we're at the end of the video, so we'll just kill it here. Anyway, enjoy, stay happy, stay healthy, keep reading, keep writing, and be the author of your own story. Peace.